Welcome to Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things, the podcast show. I am your host, Carrie Roberts, and today's episode is in partnership with Senior Care Services of Greater Princeton, located in Princeton, New Jersey. And for those that are unaware of the organization, it is a 501c3 nonprofit, again, located in Princeton, New Jersey. And it's an organization that engages volunteers to help homebound seniors age gracefully in place. And they do this by preserving their independence. They provide things like food shopping or friendly visits or just anywhere that they can help. And so today we are going to be bringing you another fabulous guest. But before we do, I want to also thank the sponsors for today's particular episode. We have Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Fox and Roach Realtors, Donna Murray. We also have Pinky Shaw Mortgage Team at Fairway, Walsh Senior Solutions, and Kathy and Mike Castellano. Now, joining me today is the Mayor of Princeton, Mark Freda. I'm so excited you're here. Welcome, Mark.
Carrie, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here, so thank you.
Yes, so we were just chatting offline. You actually were born and grew up in Princeton, which I love. So I'd love to hear when you were younger, when you were a young kid, what was it like growing up in Princeton? What are some of the memories that you have growing up in the city at that time?
Yeah. Well, Princeton has changed a lot, but when I was younger, and that was quite a while ago, I remember we'd hop on our bikes, you'd ride around town, go anywhere you want. You didn't worry about things. Your doors to your house were unlocked. You'd, come lunchtime during the summer when you weren't in school, whatever friend's house you were closest to, you probably had lunch, or they all came in your house and had lunch. It was a great experience growing up in Princeton. Very enjoyable.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, I did not grow up in Princeton, but I grew up in New Jersey, still live in New Jersey now, and just remember riding bikes with friends and just like you said, being outside, being at people's homes is always just a fun thing. Did you at a young age participate, were you in student council? Did you do anything like that in grade school or high school early on?
Yeah, you think the obvious answer would be yes, but the answer is actually no. But one of the reasons I did not actually is that I actually started working when I was in fifth grade, and I mean literally working a lot. So I had a relative that owned a store in town, and I would, after the school day was over, I would go work every weekday, and I'd work on Saturdays all day in the store, and on Sunday mornings I'd get up real early, and back then you used to still get all the newspapers delivered, and you'd be putting all the sections of the New York Times and everything together. And then we'd have the newsstand out in front of the store, and you'd be selling newspapers on Sunday mornings. So, obviously newspapers aren't quite as popular as they were decades ago, but that was part of my experience growing up.
So in fifth grade, you're usually about 10 or 11. And I think most people, if they work, usually start maybe in high school, once they have a car that can kind of drive them. Although I do remember that when I had my permit, my parents were like, we're driving you because it's important you start working and understand a work ethic. What was that like for you working at a young age? What were some of the lessons that you learned in fifth or sixth grade?
Yeah, well, I think, luckily I had a good work ethic and, needed to work. We had a single mom raising three kids, and that it was not an easy task. So, if I wanted money for, the ice cream at lunch at school or something like that, I had to go earn that money. But it was a good experience because it teaches you how to be responsible. It teaches you to be accountable for what you did or didn't do. I mean, you're expected, even though at that young age and you're working for relatives, they did rely on you to help out with their business. So I found it was a great experience. I learned a lot. I enjoyed doing it. Not that I enjoyed it every day. There were other days, when people at school were going, we're going to go out for the play, or we're going out for the basketball team or whatever. And you're like, well, I got to work. But, overall, I think it really helped me, and it helped create the person I am today, which I think has made me successful in my professional life, and has made me successful in, I don't like using the word political, but I'll say my political life, because I'm not a fan of politicians, but I am a fan of people that are true elected officials and that know why they got elected, and they're there to actually serve the people that elected them as opposed to their own agenda. So.
Yeah. And I was reading that you talked about how, you were just like, it's just about doing the right thing. And when you're doing the right thing and when you're not. I agree. Although sometimes it seems like you think people would know the difference. Is that something that you think was instilled by your mom? Like, where did you kind of just learn something that seems so basic, but may not be to other people?
Yeah, well, I think my mother was a big proponent of that. But also, the saying, "It takes a village." And when I grew up, luckily a lot of relatives were in the area. We spent a lot of time with relatives, and I think all the input you get if you pay attention. And I think as adults we tend to forget that when we were younger, when we were children, how much we did pay attention, and how much we kind of figured this adult knows what they're doing. This adult, I'm probably not going to listen to as much unless I absolutely have to. But, at a young age, you really absorb a lot. And I took advantage of it. I mean, I can remember specifically saying, yep, that's a lesson I should remember. And other times going, that's one that I might remember, but I'm not going to use that one. So
do you have a specific example for either of those that sticks in your mind? Like, oh, that's one that I should keep and that's one I should let go that you maybe heard as a kid?
I don't know that I have any specific ones that I can remember, 50 years later. But and I don't want to mention which relatives I kind of knew or listened to and which ones I shouldn't. But look, I think I was lucky. My mother worked hard. But she set a great example. I have close relatives, the ones that I worked for, that really set a good example. And I just think that's so important for children to have some role model or models that really help show them this is the way to get through life. So
yes, I couldn't agree more. So when you were 18 at the end of high school and you decide, okay, do I want to go to college? Do I want to work? What do I want to study? What do I want to be doing? What did you think at that time? What kind of direction did you take?
Yeah, I pretty much knew I was going to go to college one way or the other. Financially, that was going to be it was a challenge, but I knew in high school, my sophomore year, I was like, yeah, there's no doubt that I'm going to definitely go to college. And so I think it's an easy decision because going to college, the key to going to college is you want to learn how to learn. So you might go to college for whatever, I got it, say you get a degree in whatever. You might never use that degree. But the key to your later life, I think, is, well, I'm going to learn how to adjust. I'm going to learn how to change. And I'm going to learn how to constantly pay attention to what's going on around me and keep refreshing my brain into whatever area that's going to help me get through whatever it is I'm doing. So, there wasn't any hesitation on my part that I was going to go to college, although it did take a while.
Yeah, I think, when I went to school too, I told you I'm from New Jersey. I live in New Jersey, but I went to school down in Virginia. And you learn how to learn, you learn how to take care of yourself. You learn about other people, other communities, people that are different than you, which I think is a huge piece of it as a whole. One of the other things that you did is you volunteered for in Princeton. Now, how old were you when you started volunteering and kind of what type of work did you do? What was that experience like?
Yeah, sure. So I volunteered with the Princeton Fire Department when I turned 18. And then I think within a year, I also volunteered with the Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad. And I might have been 19 by the time I joined the First Aid Squad. But, literally at 18, 19, I started volunteering with two groups that just provide tremendous service to the community. And, talk about learning things, to join the fire department. Granted, we're not like New York City where there's fire blowing out a window every day when you're riding the fire truck. But, you see enough real situations. First Aid Squad, I mean, you're seeing people suffer all kinds of tragedies. I mean, you're seeing people die in front of you. You're seeing people that you might resuscitate and literally bring back to life to, someone that's maybe just fallen out of bed and needs a hand. So you see a wide range of things. And, I think it gives you empathy for people. And again, it's a great way to meet people because you live in the town, you're helping people that also live in your town. And I remember before one person, I mean, literally 30 years after I helped this person on a call with the Princeton First Aid Squad, I saw this person and they were like, "Hey, Mark, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute." And then all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh yeah, how are you?" And they're like, "Do you remember?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well now I do." So, you really have an impact on people. So it's hard to beat that feeling when you know that you just did something that very few other people can do to help someone at the time of extreme need.
No, I love that. And it's neat to see that, like you said, somebody so many years later remembers you being that person and helping them. Because a lot of the things you're talking about are life or death. And so it is important to have the right people there. And like you said, these people are volunteering. So you're learning, you're volunteering your time. This is extra time that you're doing for your town. I think that's wonderful. Now, you have worked for some pretty big organizations. You worked in New York for a long time. Can you kind of talk just a little bit about kind of your professional journey, and then kind of what led you to say, okay, I'm ready to, I think, go back to Princeton and get into some of the work you're doing. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that journey first.
Yeah, sure. So, I never really left Princeton. I always stayed here. It's interesting, when I went to college and I was on the 3-college 8-year plan. So that's another long story. But anyway.
That's okay. A lot of people got that.
Yeah. But I went to schools around here. So I went to what was then Rider College, is now Rider University. I went to Mercer County Community College, and I went to what was then Trenton State College, which was now the College in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. So I was always in the air, I was always in Princeton. And when I was at the College in New Jersey, I was actually working part-time at Princeton University. I left there, got a job with a company in Princeton called Commodities Corporation, and kind of fell into doing what became my profession, which was facilities management. And I was at Commodities Corp, I think, about 13 years when they got bought by Goldman Sachs. And there was a need to fill a position that suddenly opened in New York City for Goldman Sachs. And I was asked to go up there, and I said, hey, Mark, they said, Mark, there's this 6 to 8 week temporary position up in New York. Can you just go up there and fill it? And whatever you do, make us look good. So really try hard. Don't screw this up. I'm like, okay. Well, that 6 to 8, 10 week, that 8 to 10 week, 6 to 8 week, whatever it was, temporary assignment lasted like 10 years. So I worked for Goldman literally for 10 years. I think 8 of them in New York City, and 2 years when they built their skyscraper over in Jersey City. So, I don't know that I'm the typical Goldman person. I'm probably not. So that was a great way to get into Goldman. And what a great experience working for a Class A organization like Goldman Sachs. So that, what I really learned at Goldman, I think the most important thing was that no matter what you accomplish, as soon as you're done accomplishing it, you're now looking back at what you just finished and saying, now, how do I make that better? And there's no time to rest on your laurels. It's like, okay, you accomplished this. Now let's build on it. And that really was, what we look to do all the time there. So,
that's an interesting concept, because how do you find, either then or now, find the balance between enjoying what you've created or built or the success that you've had, while also saying, okay, I can improve this, I can grow this? How do you find the balance between both of those things?
Well, you do take 10 or 20 seconds to enjoy what you just accomplished.
That's it, just 10 or 20 seconds?
Maybe 30 on a good day. But I think it's a mindset. So you need to be open-minded, and you need to be able to listen to other people, because we can all get tunnel vision. We can say, wow, look what I did. I don't know that I could have done it any better. But if you're willing to listen to other people and ask other people, hey, what do you think? Did this work, or does it not work? And I think you just need to realize what worked yesterday, a week from now, a month from now, depending what it is, a year from now, it's probably not going to keep working as well as it did when you first set it up. So you just need to be, I think, realistic to know I have to constantly reevaluate what I did and look for ways, and be willing to admit, okay, it has a life expectancy, and before that life expectancy is up, I better be looking at how to make it better.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question to that, because then the other piece is, like you said, it's important to kind of ask other people's feedback, but sometimes we can get so much feedback that it's hard to kind of decide what is the best answer. So again, how do you say, okay, how do I find the mix of feedback, but also listen to what I feel is correct based on the research or my gut instinct or feeling? Do you have a process that you either did or kind of go through now in some capacity?
Well, I think it's as so many things are in life, it's a balance, and you can get buried by information and by people throwing opinions at you. And at some point, you have to know, okay, I've listened enough, I've gathered enough information, I've done all my homework that I need to do, and it's time to make a decision. We can do the old paralysis by analysis, which some people are comfortable at because, then they're never responsible for anything. It's like, well, I wish I could have done it, but I'm still analyzing it. Well, you can't analyze it forever. I think you just have to know it's okay to be responsible for your decisions and own up to them. And some of them are going to be good. Some of them are going to be mediocre and some aren't going to be good. And for the ones that aren't good or the ones that are just mediocre, it's like, okay, hey, I tried, I didn't succeed. I guess I better analyze or listen to more people or listen to different people and let me figure it out and then I'll move on. So, you can't, as long as you don't get too tied up about thinking you're the greatest thing in the world and knowing that it's okay that people disagree with you or have a different opinion, as long as you're open to that, it's really easy. It's like, okay, yeah, good idea. I would have never thought of that. Okay, I'll incorporate it and move on. So, if you don't let pride get in your way, it's really much easier. It's okay. So
yeah, let the ego go a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that's good advice. So, like I said, you had this kind of whole professional career. At what point did you grew up in Princeton, you volunteered in Princeton, you lived in Princeton, you've known so much about this area. At what point did you say, I think maybe being mayor is something I want to do? Because you were on other government pieces that were in Princeton. You were on a council, right? So what kind of made that transition into this is more the work I want to do at this moment?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when I joined the fire department when I was 18, after a while I said, geez, I wonder how it's a municipal fire department. So I'm like, the whole budget process interests me. So at some point I started going to council meetings and I ended up going to so many of them at one point. And Princeton used to be two towns, Princeton Borough and Princeton Township. And then we merged finally as of January of 2013. But anyway, back when it was Princeton Borough, at some point I was going to so many of these council meetings in the mid 80s, I guess by then I was going a lot. The then mayor of Princeton Borough, Barbara Sigmund, turned to me one day and said, "You're at all these meetings. Why don't you run for council?" She goes, "You're spending all this time here anyway. You might as well sit up here with the rest of us." So I was like, "Oh, what a great idea!" I hadn't really thought about it before, but she said that, and I'm like, "Okay, I'll try it." So, I served 13 years on the Borough Council. I did run for mayor one time while I was on the Borough Council. I didn't win that election, which happens. So, but then when I was when I hit my 13th year, also had our second child. So I have two great kids, great wife, and I was working in New York. Second child had just been born, and I said, I got to step off the council. I can't be in New York and do this and have kids at home, and it was just too much. So even though I stopped, I've always missed doing it. So when the two towns were getting ready to consolidate, there was an opportunity for me to join what was called the Transition Task Force, which was a group of people from both the borough and township that worked together to put the final format of what the new Princeton was going to look like. So I was able to be the chair of that task force. That was about an 18-month assignment, so to speak. Worked on that. Town became one town. Was sitting back watching it, and then, a little over a year ago, I said, I think some fine tuning could be done, and either I can sit at home and say, yep, some fine tuning could be done. Wish people would figure it out, or what the heck? Let me run for mayor. Let's see what happens. So, I announced early. I put together a great team. Some really great people decided to help me, and lo and behold, I got elected. You never know.
Well, and I think, again, what you bring to such value, and I don't even know if it's a requirement. Is it a requirement for a mayor of a town to have lived there for a certain period of time? Is that part of the requirement or no?
I don't know if you have to have lived there for any amount of time other than to, I guess, when you file your initial petition before the before the primary elections, you have to be a resident at that point. So it's not, it's not like running for president that you have to.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that's what, the value you bring, like you've talked about so far, having grown up in this town, having volunteered, having been on the council, having worked, so much of the ins and outs that it would make sense, like that woman said to you, like you should be more a part of this because you're so passionate about it and so much in it. I'm curious, when you became mayor or you were thinking about this, you kind of gave some of your mindset tips already, but how do you lead a community? I don't know what the population is of Princeton, if you can share that with us, but how do you lead your local community, and how should a leader lead, do you think, in your opinion?
Sure. So Princeton's between 30 and 31,000 people. It's like 18 and a half square miles. So it's not a big place. It's a nice size town. And it is a town, but, during the daytime, well, under COVID, everything's different. But let's assume COVID doesn't exist for a second. Without COVID, you have Princeton University, Institute for Advanced Study, Princeton Theological Seminary. There's a lot of businesses in Princeton. So the daytime population of Princeton swells tremendously. So, only at night do you have that 31,000 people. During the day, it's much greater. So it's a pretty busy place. It's like a small city. Yeah. But I think the way to lead is pretty simple. And again, it gets back to do the right thing. And I think for most people, knowing that you're doing the right thing isn't a big challenge. You pretty much know when you're doing the right thing or not. And if you're questioning, gee, am I doing the right thing? Then you're probably not. Because, if you're questioning yourself, you're already going down the road. Well, maybe I should do this differently. But my style is just be totally open and honest with people. And people will say maybe I'm too blunt at times, but I think it's better to let people know, here's exactly what I'm thinking. And here's exactly why I'm thinking it. And at the same token, I'm sharing that with you. Now you say something that maybe I don't know, or something I wasn't aware of, or something I never thought of. Oh, okay. I'm happy to say, well, geez, if I had thought of that, then maybe my position would be a little bit different. So, I think if you're open and you're transparent and you're willing to listen to people, and not only listen, but actually consider what they're saying, then I think that is part of being a good leader. And to go with that, I think is, again, before COVID, you're in the council room. I don't know, there's 50 people in the audience attending the council meeting. And you just finished spending 5 minutes telling everybody why the sky will always be blue no matter what. And somebody gets up and says, well, at night it's not blue. Okay. Yeah. So in front of all those people, you need to be willing to say, you're right. I wasn't right. Thank you for pointing that out. Now I know I need to say something different. And if you're willing to do that, I think the people that you serve respect you more, and they're more willing to put up with you when you make a decision that may not coincide with what they hoped you would do. I mean, I know when I was on Borough Council, I'd have people come up to me and say, Mark, really wish you had voted a different way on this specific topic. But you know what? Overall, I know that if I come up to you and talk to you, you're actually going to listen to me. You'll actually consider what I'm telling you. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm pretty content with you as an elected official because you're trying hard, you're working, you're listening, and I know we won't always agree. As long as you're aware of that, again, I don't think it's that hard a job. It's just,
they always say, right? Common sense isn't always so common. But I agree, it is so much of that. Like you said, it's listening and trying to, as best you can, make a decision, and it may not always be the right one, but then listening again and having those conversations. And I think it's great to hear that you're honest and you're open, and you have people that feel comfortable to come up to you and be honest and open with you too. And that's a huge piece of leadership, in my opinion. So I thank you for sharing that. When we talk about the community, the community of a town is all encompassing, and especially Princeton, there's a few different areas I wanted to touch on. The first one, obviously, that I always think about is education, obviously the home of Princeton University. I was just there a few weeks ago. I just wanted to share too that Joaquin Palo also was there. He's actually from Canada. So he visited Princeton back in 2019. Beautiful place indeed. I love it too. I just took my boyfriend there. He saw it for the first time. It's just a great town. How does, educational institutions, especially one like Princeton University, really help the community thrive and create a great space?
Yeah, well, you just look at the number of people that the university attracts. First of all, there's all the students and staff. And so a fair number of those people live in Princeton. A whole bunch of them shop in Princeton or eat at Princeton and at the different restaurants and everything. So they're a vital part of the economic engine for Princeton. I mean, Princeton University is a vital economic driver for probably all of Central Jersey, because they employ so many people. They have thousands of employees, and it's an institution that's growing. It's an institution that, they have a 50-year plan. They know what they're doing. If the rest of us could learn how to plan as far ahead as they do, we'd be much better off. Of course, they have a lot more resources than most of us, so that helps them. But having places like the university, the Institute for Advanced Study, the Theological Seminary, it just those types of places attract so many people from so many different backgrounds, so many different life experiences, and they're all here in the town, and they all get involved in different things. We were talking about the whole thing here about senior care services of Princeton. Mm-hmm. If you look at all the nonprofits that are in Princeton, I mean, it's amazing. But there's so many people here that care about so many different things. All these nonprofits have a way to survive here and to thrive here, because there's a population here that is, I guess you'd say progressive. Some people might say liberal, but I tend to think, you don't need to be progressive or liberal to want to help other people. A lot of people here look around and say, yeah, there are problems in our country. There are problems in the world. There's problems in New Jersey, in our county, in our town, and we're going to try to address them. But anyway, having all these different people with all these different perspectives on life and a willingness to just help just makes this town an amazing place. I mean, it's too expensive. We've got to figure out a way to make it easier for people in all social, economic levels to be able to stay in town. Right now, it's quite a challenge, and it's a constant battle that way. Taxes are high. This whole area of Central Jersey is expensive, but you need that mix of people. That mix of people is really what makes your town very special. So anyway, that's a high priority, something we need to address. Anyway, I think I'm drifting.
No, I completely agree. And I think that's, again, another reason that I love the area. Another question we talked about is, from your perspective, what is the greatest need for senior citizens or older adults, whatever word we want to kind of use here. So again, what is the greatest need for them in Princeton, do you think?
Well, I think there's a number of them. And depending how well off they are or not, that's going to impact what they need. So it is an expensive place to live. So if you're on a fixed income, you're living on a pension, your pension amount, your Social Security, well, your pension probably isn't increasing. It is what it is. So if you retired 20 or 30 years ago, it's probably very hard for you to stay in this town. So if you're just affording to stay here is a problem. And that's where places like, senior care services come in. I mean, senior care services, they'll go do your food shopping. They'll come and visit you. You need to get to a medical appointment. Maybe you no longer can afford a car. Maybe you can't drive any longer. So, do you really want to be paying, I first would say a taxi, but there aren't a lot of cabs left anymore. So now, whether it's Uber or whatever, but you really want to have some paid service every time you need to leave your home. And, in a place like Senior Care Services provides those kind of services. So I think being able to stay here is a challenge. And if you can't stay in your home and you sell it, where do you go? So, housing for seniors, are there, I know in our community, we're about to build some more senior housing, but, there just isn't enough. So it's, unfortunately, many people decide to sell their home and then they have to go to a different place. And it's like, that's really tough. You spent most of your life in one town, and now that you're retired and you're supposed to be taking it easy, you have to leave. So, there's a number of needs.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I like about senior care services, they always talk about aging gracefully in place. And I really like that because it's like you said, if you've been in a town your whole life, you don't necessarily want to move, or, sometimes people just want to feel like they can be independent but have that extra help. Assuming they don't have any major medical issues, that's of huge value. And I know that for you personally, you just talked about you grew up with your mom, a single mom with 3 kids. She did so much for you. And she actually used the senior care services to kind of help her. Can you talk a little bit about how it helped her and kind of just how you noticed how she felt when they would come around and just be with her, spend time, help with her needs?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that she took advantage of were the home visits, right? I mean, so she was pretty much homebound, so she wasn't getting out unless it was a doctor's appointment or something like that. So, you sit there, you look out the living room window, and you can see people going by, but you can't engage with them. So to have somebody come in the house and be willing to sit there and talk to you for a couple hours, and somebody that's local, somebody that can talk to you about what's going on in town, somebody that knows the people that you know and can say, oh yeah, so and so's son or daughter just got married or had a baby or whatever. So to catch up on all of that is, it's a tremendous value. I don't even know how you put a value on that. So I know my mother thoroughly enjoyed that, and I would hear from her every time that happened. Now, senior care services also will take people to medical appointments and do their food shopping. But my mother always preferred that I do that. So as much as I was like, hey, Mom, they'll do some of this, she goes, oh, no, I think you should do that. So, but there's lots of people in town that take advantage of all their services. And it's a great help to people that can't do it for themselves, or that, like in my mother's case, luckily I was there. But what do you do for people that don't have relatives that are nearby? I mean, how do they get that help? Otherwise?
Yeah, and I think, you made a good point here, which everyone that I've met from senior care services, which is why we've been partnering on some of these episodes, is so bubbly, is so passionate, is so excited about what they do, about helping others, about giving to others. And I think, the thing you talked about, sometimes our need isn't always a physical need, but it's an emotional need. And especially during now when people feel isolated, to have someone to come talk to you and spend time in a genuine way. You're right. You don't get that from going in an Uber per se.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't get that from, their household. And especially, I had someone say, for moms, for many years, they are the glue, the center of the household. And then as the kids get older, they're sometimes left by themselves. They're not doing as much as they were anymore. And so to have that kind of extra companion to come in, to be kind of a friend, is of huge value, that goes beyond, just getting the groceries. It's just an extension of. So I love that you mentioned that, and that was such a big deal for your mom in general. When we talk about nonprofits, you had mentioned earlier that people love to help people, and you see that a lot in Princeton. Can you talk about how nonprofits have been able to kind of grow and thrive in your community as a whole?
Yeah. So, government, especially local government, can't do everything that's needed. It's just, you just can't afford to do it. And there's an economy of scale that, New Jersey has 500 some towns. So, there's just so many towns. There's no economy of scale for most of them. So, we do rely on, Princeton's in Mercer County. So we do rely on the county for certain services, and we rely on the state for some other services, but there's always needs that just aren't met. So in Princeton and surrounding Princeton, there's just so many nonprofits. So, during the whole COVID situation, a number of groups that already existed, new groups came into existence that were trying to help people with, people needing food, people needing money to pay rent, people needed clothing, whatever. So, people stepped in, these groups stepped in, groups started working together that might not have worked together to the extent that they had until COVID hit. So, you look at that and you experience it, and you just like, wow, there's just so much good in this world. There's just so much good here. I mean, people are basically good. Unfortunately, we watch the news and it's usually about the bad, not so much the good. But if you paid attention, and I'm sure Princeton is like most communities, a lot of people jumped up and helped out other people during all the challenges that COVID presented. And I think if you just step back and look at that, and you just got to say, wow, there's just so much goodness around us. and celebrate those people helping other people. A lot of people would really just be so so worse off if others hadn't said, look, I'm going to do whatever I can to help you. It's a great thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, that's part of why I've done this show for so long, is to highlight that there are amazing people around us. And it's not always about, somebody being famous, but rather about the things that we do every day and just simply caring and giving. And I love that you're highlighting that, not only what you've done, but your local community as well. I want to have another question here from Joaquin. He says, two-part question for Mayor. What book is currently on your nightstand, and what books, topics, themes that populate your bookshelf?
So I have a stack of books that I'm trying to read, but I have found that since I became mayor, my reading time has greatly diminished, which is unfortunate because I love to read. But I like history. I like biographies. I read a lot of military history. I like mysteries. A good whodunit, you kind of, some of them surprise you, but most of them you kind of know the good guy's going to win in the end. So, I mean, the world's a perfect place. So, I like to read to relax, but I do have a number of other things. It's interesting. I became mayor, and a few people gave me books as gifts and said, "Hey, congratulations!" And I had a book on city planning. Hey, we really should be talking more about how do you plan for people walking, riding bikes, et cetera, and not just so much it's, hey, everything's centered around one person in a car. So, someone else gave me a book. Hey, here's your, what should you aim for in your first 90 days? So unfortunately, my first 90 days have come and gone, and I haven't finished the book. So I hope I didn't miss out too much on that. But so I read a wide variety of things, and I'm hoping as I get my schedule more under control to get back to some nice reading time.
Yeah, well, that's why, I mean, I know too, I love to read, but it's also, sometimes it's podcasts, sometimes it's documentaries, all the different medias that we have when we don't always have the time to sit down fully. As we kind of finish up here, is there any advice that you would give when it comes to anyone that's leading, whether it's a manager at a company or a CEO, or it's a parent in their household, or it's another person and a mayor in another town? Do you have any advice on how to lead to the best of their ability?
I think you need to be yourself. Don't try to be somebody you're not. Be open, be honest, and understand your limitations. There's nothing embarrassing about saying to somebody, I'm at this level on this topic. You're at this level. I need your help. Explain to me what I don't understand or know. Put me in the right direction. It's, and again, like I said earlier, do the right thing. It's pretty basic to me. It should be pretty easy.
Yeah, again, it should be easy. And the last question I have for you before we finish up is similar to maybe what you just said, but what is one word or quote or mantra that you try to live by every single day?
I think I got to go back to, be myself, be open and honest, and, don't get caught up in yourself. Okay, great. So I'm the mayor. There's a title, mayor. Okay, but I'm still Mark, and I tell most people, they go, oh, Mr. Mayor, or, I have to call you Mayor Freda. I'm like, no, you know me. My name is Mark. Call me Mark. I'm not going to get this false sense of whatever. I'm still the same person. So don't, just stick to being yourself.
Yeah, no, I like that. Senior Care Services says we have experienced outstanding collaboration here as well for our clients. Thank you so much for leading by example and supporting Senior Care Services. So any last thoughts for Senior Care Services for people that don't know, maybe where they can connect or donate, or any thoughts on that to finish up?
Yes, thank you. Because they'll be very upset with me if I don't mention the website and the phone number. I know I'm supposed to do that. So
it's important. We have to, especially if you are a local person, it's good, all the great things that they're doing.
Yeah, because it is a group we should, and I personally support them, right? So I'm not somebody that says support a group and I don't support them. So I do support them also. But you can go to info@seniorcare Services, G as in Greater, P as in Princeton.org. So info@seniorcareservicesgp.org, or you can call them 609-921-8888. They deserve your support.
It's perfect. Well, I thank you so much, Mark, for sharing your story, your journey, just your overall thoughts on mindset and leadership and the support that you give to nonprofits like Senior Care Services. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And thank you for making this easy.
Yes.
You
So
made me
wonderful.
very comfortable.
Good. I want to also thank Senior Care Services of Greater Princeton for being a part of this and sponsoring this episode, as well as our sponsors, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Fox and Roach Realtors, Donna Murray, Pinky Shaw Mortgage Team at Fairway, Walsh Senior Solutions, and Kathy and Mike Castellano. Again, we will be doing another episode within this series in May, so you can stay tuned for that date as well as that individual that we'll be doing it with. And of course, if you do want to learn more about Senior Care Services of Greater Princeton, you can go to their website as well, seniorcareservicesgp.org. Again, they're doing a lot of great things within the community. And part of the reason I've partnered with them is because I'm all about people who are helping others, who are being kind, who are being supportive. And again, as we talked about, kind of that emotional and physical support that they provide. So I want to thank you all so much. If you want to listen to other episodes of this show, you can go to Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things wherever you listen to podcasts. And I thank you all so much. And I look forward to next time.